Good afternoon. Will you please welcome our 2017 spring graduates? Come on in. All right. This is kind of semi-formal, so we try to keep this a little bit more relaxed. Hi, my name is Randy Nedegard. I'm the MSW Program Director here at the University of North Dakota, and it is my privilege to welcome you to our hooding ceremony. This is a really exciting time for us as faculty, for the students, because this is the culmination of a very large accomplishment. And for some of our graduates, they've been working at this for over 3 years. This has been a long process. And so it's really neat to be able to go ahead and celebrate this time with them. Thank you for coming on Friday afternoon when we have commencement tomorrow morning. The other option was to have this at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. We thought this might be better. So we have actually had it at 7 in the morning, and you get a lot of grumbling and tired people, but so this worked out to be a pretty good thing. For our social work program, we have both a distance program and a campus program. Today, our graduates are primarily from our distance program, and yet look at all the people that we have here coming today. And so it's so wonderful that we have people coming from all over the country and even as far as Newfoundland, Canada. And so it's just really a neat opportunity. This hooding ceremony is something that we do to honor our graduates, because when you go to the main graduation commencement ceremony, they only hood a certain number of doctoral students. So our students don't get the chance to be hooded at commencement. Now, when I went through with my MSW at the University of Minnesota way back in the day, I remember not being hooded and going, wow, that would be really cool to be hooded. That's, I felt like I missed out on that. Fortunately, I got to do that later again. But this is really a neat opportunity. And we are doing this because the MSW is seen as the terminal degree in our field. This is really kind of the end. Unless you want to go into research and teaching, this is where most social workers finish their formal academic education. So you might ask yourself, and I apologize to the faculty, they get to hear me talk about this most every hooding ceremony. And if you've been to another hooding ceremony, you've probably heard this too. But I like to talk a little bit about the significance of the hood. You might wonder, what's all this academic regalia all about? And so back in the Middle Ages, the hoods were used, and in Europe, and they were mostly fur and wool. And why was that? Well, because it was cold and they were not so pretty, and they weren't so colorful. They were just very much more functional. And we can certainly relate to needing those sorts of things to stay warm here in North Dakota, although not today. Although in here it's a little chilly. So now we have very colorful hoods, and the color of the hoods means something. So the pink and green in your hood are the school colors. So we're going to try to petition our football and hockey teams to start wearing pink and green rather than green and white, but I don't think that's going to go very far. But those are our academic colors, the true colors of the University of North Dakota. And then you have your citron velvet lining there in this, and that is significant for social work. So you don't want to, I know it looks yellow, but you don't want to confuse citron with maize or lemon or science gold or just regular old gold, because they would confuse you with graduates from architecture, library science, military science, industrial arts, criminology, or even the dreaded psychology. So Citron is specific to social work. So that's what that is all about. We also share Citron with social science and urban life and sanitary science. I'm not even sure what sanitary science is, but just for those of you that wanted to know. At any rate, we're going to go ahead and move along now with our program, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce to you Dr. Karen Lee Barkdal. She is the chair of our program and is going to say a few words to welcome you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Trying to turn and see all your faces. There's some people I haven't seen for a while. This is really joyous to see so many. I know some of our campus students did some extraordinary and special things and took a little longer path through, and that's why some of you are here, and so many of our distant students are here too. So it's just a wonderful reunion, and I'm tickled pink that you could all be here with family, friends, loved ones, and loyal supporters as you've been on, some of you, quite a long journey. If you've been with us since the foundation program, you've been with us so long that you're adopted family. So I hope that all of you always feel that you are always part of the University of North Dakota, part of our social work program, and that we always consider you family and friends wherever your journeys take you. So formally, I'll say welcome, faculty, staff, family, and friends, to our spring semester hooding ceremony. I want to also thank those who are joining us through our live streaming technology up there in the booth. We'll also be sending a link of the ceremony out, so sometimes people can't even attend virtually at this time. So it'll be something that you can have and share later with others at a more convenient time if they need to view it at another time. It's such a great privilege to work with such fine students, faculty, and staff. And although I've been here a few years now, I can't believe it, I'm in my 12th year at UND and coming to the conclusion of my 4th year as chair. It's gone so fast. The joy and excitement of the hooding ceremony never diminishes as we have the honor of celebrating your accomplishments with you. It's indeed a special time. I think all of you know, because I've had y'all in class, that I have a great passion, as do all of your professors, for the unique profession of social work. It's as much a calling as it is a profession, and that's one of the things that helps us to be unique. We're unique in so many ways. As you know, we have this strengths orientation, this kind of transactional orientation to the world with that whole person and environment thing. We think about context, we think about the big picture, we think about the interactions and the complex systemic nature of things. And of course, we have a unique mandate to advocate for and with marginalized and oppressed populations. There's never been a time when you've been needed more, or when the ethics and values of our profession can light the way more for a better path ahead, I hope. This unique social justice mandate that we have to promote social and economic justice and to understand and actively fight against the mechanisms of discrimination and oppression are unique to social work. I've never seen that mandate in any other professional code of ethics that I've ever come across. And I've read many, because I'm always looking to purloin things from other codes. As I mentioned, that work I don't think has ever been more relevant, nor perhaps confronted more challenges in my lifetime as I reflect upon the days ahead of you as newly minted MSWs. You've worked hard to develop competencies. Remember what those things are? That's that set of knowledge and values and skills with all those dang practice behaviors attached in your ever too lengthy syllabi as you worked to develop those throughout each of your courses. There were 41 practice behaviors, and I'm sure you have them all memorized. And we're 10 competencies that most of you worked on. So I wanted to send you out this evening with a focus on competency 3, which is something that I've been perseverating a lot about lately. And that's that one that says, advance human rights and social, economic, and environmental justice. Wow, what a tall order for a newly minted MSW. Social workers advocate for these rights at the individual and the systems level. Also, what a challenging and daunting and wonderful and fulfilling task. And we're to engage in practices and live in ways that advance justice at each of these levels for the individual, groups, families, organizations, communities, at the policy and super macro levels, right? So I know that each of you knows this, but of course I get a chance to have the bully pulpit and try to send you forth feeling ever more passionate about this, hopefully today. I know you've been really busy and consumed as students, as parents, as daughters, as sons, as sisters, and as family members, and also as employees, as many of you have worked often full-time during our program. So it seems kind of a tough call for me to ask you to keep trying to do one more thing, but I will send you forth asking you to do one more thing. As social workers, we can't accomplish competency number 3 if we are opting out of our own civic engagement. While politics offers much that tempts one to turn away, and indeed there are many forces out there that would wish us to, forces that cultivate feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and cynicism, that serves someone. But rest assured, it doesn't serve your vulnerable clients to opt out, and it doesn't serve you as community members. You may have heard French journalists recently bemoaning the low turnout in the recent election for the French president. 74% of French voters voted, and that was considered a low turnout. Something less than 60% of eligible American voters turned out last November. I should have grabbed the Canadian stats too, shouldn't I have? That was not a record high, but it was still a relatively high percentage for us, actually. Helping our citizenry to engage in higher voting turnout and making sure we turn out ourselves is something that I want to also extol social workers to care about. In France, voting is a national holiday, and federal elections are managed by the federal government, not individual states, reducing opportunities for the kinds of voter suppression activities that continue to be the sad stories of many of our states' elections in the US. And civic engagement is also more than voting. So please stay engaged. Find a cause and reach out to others to find common ground and keep good work moving forward with hope, with optimism, with goodwill, with passion and caring, with all the things that I know each of you brings to this equation. That will help us light the way. I also want to try to convince you all to think about at some point maybe running for office. At the student banquet, folks heard me talking about this because I heard it recently at a meeting that I went to, a national meeting. In the US, there are more undertakers in Congress than there are social workers. So let me plant that seed that maybe some of you will even consider aiming that high or higher. And in the meantime, now that you've got all the spare time on your hands, right, and nothing that you have to catch up on, just something you need to fill your time. And I know many of you already do this and have managed to somehow do this even in the course of your studies, but I urge you, the park board, the school board, the city council, the county commission, the provincial, whatever it might be, at whatever level you can participate, engage. And help your clients, too, to understand how they might engage in civic life as well. I will dare to posit that their engagement in civic life is as empowering and therapeutic as many of the things that mental health professionals, which many of you are and will be, also do. So think about the empowering nature of us all working together with goodwill to make our communities a better place and to include everyone in our civic life. So thanks for letting me preach at you a bit. And I'll say you have my heartfelt congratulations for a job well done. You're ready to join us as colleagues and to represent us well in your agencies and in your communities. My plea is that you always be a social worker first. You can say you're a therapist, but please say you are a social worker who is a therapist. Maintain strong identities as both social workers and change agents wherever your career paths take you. You have our confidence that you will dedicate yourselves not only to fixing problems, but to building that more just, humane, and compassionate world that I know you all have the power to help us build together. Congratulations on achieving this wonderful milestone today. We're so very proud of you.
Thanks, Karen Lee. The Department of Social Work is in the College of Nursing and Professional Disciplines. And so today we're blessed to have our Dean, Dean Gail Rue, come and speak to us for a little bit.
Thank you and greetings. I would like to especially send a warm welcome to those people who are viewing from a distance, because I know sometimes that can be a little bit of a disconnect. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to give you one last test question. And as soon as I say, well, this really isn't going to be on the test, everybody can just zone out. But this perhaps is a really important question for you that you contemplate today as you celebrate, but also contemplate each day of your career. And this question is, do you know how lucky you are? And you can say back to me, what is she thinking? How lucky I am. Do you think I learned those competencies and those field practice relationships just because of luck? No, I know it was a lot of hard work. But when I ask you to contemplate on how lucky you are, what I'm really thinking of is this. First, just to think that you've now graduated from a state university. We're not saying we're better than other universities, but we'd like to think that your program is solid, and we want to give credit to those who've gone before. This university is 134 years old. It was established 6 years before this region was even a state. So we want to give thought to how lucky you are that we do have a state university. We're one of 50 universities of. The second thing is to consider how lucky you are that we do have the cognitive, mental, physical, spiritual characteristics, stamina, and strengths that many of our clients or our vulnerable populations or our migrant populations have not had an opportunity either to have those gifts or use those gifts in the way you have. And the third thing, when you look at how lucky you are, consider all the support that you've had from those people who are here, your family, friends, and loved ones, as well as those who were not able to attend today. And to those in presence here, to kind of celebrate, I would say to you also, test question, do you know how lucky you are? That again, you're lucky to have a family member, a friend, or loved one that was able to persevere and commit to this career and complete a graduate degree in Master's of Science in Social Work. I know that for me, for my daughter, I felt really lucky the day she graduated with her Master's of Science in Statistics. I didn't feel quite as lucky when they called from the high school and said, we think your daughter was one of the girls that was egging a car. But, but nevertheless, on this day and in the future, consider how lucky you are that you were able to support someone through to this stage of the launching of their career. And lastly, to the faculty, I would say again, I know that when we talk about investment, we wish that the state continues to value and invest in higher education. But nevertheless, consider that we do have each other. We're a strong you're a very strong community of talented social workers with many years of field work and social service management, as well as your ability to relate to the vulnerable populations. So at this celebration, really do try to contemplate, remember for now and in the future, how lucky you are. One last evidence-based principle I'm going to give to you is, this is actually based on research from Dr. David Destino, who is teaching at the Northeastern University in Boston. And he's a clinical psychologist, and his work has been on appreciation. When he had an experimental group and a control group, he gave the experimental group appreciation exercises and then monitored them. And compared to the control group, as you probably know, their stress was less, their quality of life was higher, and they were able to give back and invest in others with their time and money. So it not only will help you decrease your stress as you advance in your career, but it will also help you as you're continually kind of asked to invest in others. So congratulations. We are lucky. I do know you worked hard also, but always begin and end your day with a sense of appreciation. We very much appreciate that you were here, you're a talented group of students, and you graduated. Thank you.
Well, every year, or every time we have a hooding ceremony, we have a faculty speaker. This time, because this is largely our distance group that's graduating, we have somebody who teaches exclusively in the distance program talking to us today. So some of you who are in the campus program may not have even met Vince, but we're really pleased to have Professor Vince Lindgren come to speak with us today.
Well, welcome. I've never done this sort of thing before, so I hope it comes off without a hitch here. But I want to say, first of all, here, I want to start off with a little story. I talked to a friend of mine since I hadn't been involved in this sort of thing before, and said to my friend, well, what do you think that you would decide would be useful to say to the graduates? And one of the things that he said to me was, he says, I think there's a quote from Einstein that might be appropriate. And the quote goes like this. It says, the intellectual solves problems and the genius prevents them. And it seemed like that was very appropriate. As I think about our work together in the program, my work with all of you, one of the things in the program is that we spend quite a bit of time taking a look at problems, understanding problems, developing interventions for the problems, looking at theories that explain and try to give us some insight into them. And that's a very important element, and hopefully has been a very useful part of your education here at UND. But I think ultimately what good practice comes down to is working with clients in terms of accessing their strengths and trying to promote those sort of elements as a way of helping them to address their problems. For those of you in the audience who are not, do not have a background in social work, one of the things in social work is that we owe our profession to the idea that we help people with problems, economic problems, mental health problems, medical problems, just to name a few. And so it's very important for us to have an understanding of that. But in recent years, one of the things that social work as a profession has really taken a look at is, yes, it's important for us to understand problems and to know how to intervene with them, but we really need to pay as much attention to what makes the people that we're working with a human being, someone with resources, someone with resilience, and tap into the strengths that they bring to the table and help them to appreciate those things as a way of providing a basis for and the strength for dealing with the challenges that they face every day. So from my standpoint, when my friend said, this is a quote that I think would be useful to share with your students, one of the pieces that I thought about is that piece of the strengths being the strengths-based piece of social work being the critical element that helps you to prevent problems from developing in the first place. And that's what I'm hoping that all of you will engage with in your practice as social workers. One of the things I want to say to, there's a number of people in this room who do not have these sort of things on. Friends and family of graduates, and on behalf of the graduates and the department, I want to say thank you to all of you folks, because one of the things that I realize is that I wouldn't be here without the support of my friends and family, and neither would these folks in the front row as well. They've worked extremely hard over the past 2 to 3 years. There's been times when they've been in tears because of all kinds of things going on and not enough time or mental energy to deal with it. And it's you folks out there that have been there for them, supported them, held their hand, listened, even though, you know, so what? So you got papers to do, you know, but you were respectful and supportive and are in no small part responsible for folks being here in this front row today. One of the things that was interesting to me was a number of years ago when I was teaching at another social work program in a different university. I had a colleague who did a research study, and one of the things that he looked at was he was interested in students who were the first student in their family to come to college. This was an undergraduate program, and he was wondering what made the difference in terms of someone being the first student to first one in the family to come to college. And he did some extensive interviewing of a number of different students who were the first in their family. And one of the things that he found out was, to a person, they had someone in their lives, a parent, an uncle, a coach, or a teacher, who saw something special in them, who saw that they had a gift and encouraged them. And I tell you what, in my mind, that's the difference between what we have here, what you all have here today as graduates, is each one of you had one, or in most likelihood, many people who were behind you, who believed in you, and really made a difference and helped you to persist such that you're here today. So again, to all of you out there, friends and family, I just want to say thanks on behalf of the graduates, because they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing without your support and love here today. So, one of the things that I think is, I want to just share a little bit about my experience with the distance learning students. As Randy was saying, I taught exclusively in the online program, so I've spent a lot of Wednesday and Thursday nights with many of you. A lot of times I didn't see your faces, so I didn't get to know you on that level, but I certainly got to know your spirit. I certainly got to know your, particularly your curiosity and your engagement. And following off the words of Dr. Barkdahl and Dr. Rue, one of the things that I think I feel very good about, that makes me feel good about the future of the profession, is the level of curiosity and engagement that I saw from all of you. I think that's generally true in the distance learning program. I don't know exactly what all it has to do with. There's a number of different factors. You all come in with a wealth of social work experience already. That's a big thing. You're a little bit older, so you know your mind a little bit more. You know what you want, you know what you don't want, things of that nature. But the piece that I always thought was interesting was you could have been here just to get your degree that you're going to get tomorrow, but for the most part, I saw many, many interested students who were engaged and curious and had wonderful comments and wonderful questions. And I would just say to you that my wish for you is that you continue that level of curiosity and engagement, because it is going to serve you so well as graduate level social workers. And again, from my standpoint, I just want to say I feel good about the future of the profession as a result of that. So, last thing I want to end up with is another quote, and this is a quote that may be a little bit more familiar to a number of you, and it comes from Margaret Mead, and she says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And a number of you probably remember, I don't know if I said it a lot, but I know it's something that's on my mind a lot, and that's the idea that we don't do social work in a vacuum. No matter how talented you are, no matter how bright you are, no matter how gifted you are, and those things are true of each one of you, effective social work happens at a group level. It takes a number of people to paraphrase Hillary Clinton, it takes a village. And I would really encourage you, I've seen you rely on each other, help each other, work together very, very effectively, and I would encourage you to continue that attitude as well as the curiosity element that I was talking about, and you're going to be very, very well served in your career as a social worker. I want to say thanks for allowing me to be a part of your small group. I consider myself to be that in that group, and I wish you all the best in your social work careers. Thank you.
Thanks, Vince. Now we're going to have our student speakers. The first student speaker we have is one of our distance student speakers, or distance students, and her name is Kadeen Cummings. Welcome, Kadeen.
Thank you. Faculty, graduates, family, friends, and those who have joined the celebration via live streaming, good afternoon. I must say, when Carol extended the invitation for me to speak on behalf of the MSW distance student cohort, I thought of every reason why I shouldn't, but of course my social work brain defied all those reasons by reminding me what an honor it is to be speaking on behalf of such an amazing group of people. Then I was humbled. Thank you, Carol, the social work faculty, my peers, for your confidence for me to share a few words about our journey. The profession of social work is guided by the principles of service, social justice, the dignity and worth of a person, the importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. As students and professionals, We have lived by these values, and they have become a part of our identity. The profession of social work is governed by its mission, values, ethics, and principles, which are used to guide practice. Certainly, this profession has a history of embracing the lifelong learning of its members. The activities within the social work department of the University of North Dakota are guided by its mission statement: to advance knowledge and learning, and to prepare competent, responsive, and ethical social workers who empower vulnerable populations, promote social justice, and are committed to serving diverse populations. For this cohort, social work may have chosen us, but that did not make the journey easier. Some of our journeys to the field of social work consisted of many detours. Some of us included studies in our undergraduate studies, in areas of conflict resolution studies, international development studies, political studies, education, counseling, and the list goes on. These detours resulted in a wealth of knowledge in the classroom and various lenses in which we looked at the material being taught. Some of us have expressed that social work chose us and not the other way around. Regardless of who chose who or what, we can all agree that it is a beautiful thing when career and passion are amalgamated. The juxtaposition of graduate school and full-time work sounds very intimidating. As for my peers and I, this experience spared no oxymoron. In orientation, we were cautioned that the journey would be hard, but rewarding. Therefore, we were to try not to make any major life decision during this tenure. But of course, there were babies born, weddings, job changed, and for some people, they even moved to different states, and the list goes on. As distance learned students, we have had the best of both worlds, being able to do our graduate studies in a profession we all love, in the comfort and luxury of our home, embraced by the support of our families and friends. And whenever something unexpected happened before the cameras, we would try to grab the memory out of thin air in an already engraved mind of a given class. The synchronous classroom setting truly kept us connected, encouraged and stimulated learning, even though we dreaded coming on camera. Some of us would be in our pajamas for class, and when we were called upon, blankets or the emergency hoodie next to our computer were quickly thrown on or put on. When Dr. Quinn asked that we all be in camera for the duration of research class, we were not pleased. Respectfully, though, we complied, but only for the first couple of weeks. Then we decided to own it, and the challenge periods began, where we would send group text messages with silly things to do on camera, and when someone was able to pull off the challenge, we had to pause our cameras, trying to contain our laughter. The challenges continued for many other courses, and it made learning much more fun. Campus visits. A week of school in a physical classroom from 8:30 a.m. until 4 p.m., plus being face-to-face with the people we developed a virtual relationship with over the months, were truly the opposite of intimidating. What was intimidating was having to share private space, as most of us opted to share hotel rooms. What was intimidating, as social workers, we all had a plan B, as we would call it, our escape plan. Just in case the rooming situation wasn't working out, we all planned to jump in our cars and go exploring on our own after school, but that didn't happen at all. The bonds formed online naturally transitioned to laughter, chatter, and jokes that kept us up until 3 a.m. in the mornings, and our instructors wondered why we dawdled into class a few minutes after 8:30 each day. Don't even ask what we were doing to entertain ourselves during that time. I recalled my first campus visit banquet when a peer from the 6 p.m. section introduced herself only for us to realize that we live in the same community. Amazingly, we shared mutual friends, and here I was thinking I was the only Winnipegger in my cohort, which brings me to the diversity of our cohort. Diversity in educational backgrounds, interests, and culture were very evident in our journey. Within our MSW distance learn class, we had a number of international students, me being one, from Canada, from as close as Manitoba and as far as Newfoundland. The scope of social work practice is remarkably wide and diverse. Social workers practice in traditional and non-traditional social service agencies by utilizing the skills that are foundational and fundamental to practice. The social work faculty members have been very supportive throughout the journey, while not negating the environment we live and function in. As for the favorite narrative of Dr. Weber, who would have it, my favorite kind of pie is, can I get some help, please? Person and environment. The faculty support was truly exemplar in reminding us that the environment is key to our well-being. They were there providing therapy, crisis counseling, career counseling, and assisting students in meeting life's daily challenges while maintaining a family, career, and social life. This exemplar demonstration was a good example for us as social workers going into the field where we will work with clients in their environment and will need to be attentive to the barriers that lie within their environment and find ways to navigate them while supporting our clients. Today, we stand in solidarity as basic agents of positive change, a client advocating, injustice fighting, therapy providing, systems testing, family support preserving, social conscious raising, data collecting, rights protecting, child defending, staff developing, human assisting, strength focused, social rights championing, ego lending, and crisis intervening teacher, facilitator, listener, encourager, supporter, and leader with professionalism, integrity, concern, empathy, values, love, trust, honesty, and warmth. We are social workers. Social work is a challenging yet rewarding and dynamic field, but it's also a demanding profession requiring emotional and personal maturity. The challenges of life paired with school and work tested each one of us. However, through our own determination to make a difference in not only our lives, but those of our clients, we persevered and we are here today to celebrate this momentous occasion in our lives and our careers. The journey would not have been possible without the assistance of our support system, and I would like to take a moment to thank each person who supported and contributed towards our journey and this milestone in our life. To our colleagues who graduated absentia, congratulations. On behalf of the graduating class, we extend an insurmountable heartfelt gratitude and appreciation in thankfulness to God, our families, friends, lecturers, loved ones, and every support systems available to us, including the social work faculty, as this day would not be possible without your help. According to Dr. Rupeline, author of The Principles of Success Made Easy, if you have a dream, don't just sit there. Gather courage to believe that you can succeed and leave no stone unturned to make it a reality. Therefore, if we were to compare this journey to a favorite game of chess, then we all just checkmate to a well-fought victory. Thank you.
Thank you, Kadeen. Our campus student representative speaker is Helen Hutton.
good afternoon. It's nice to be here today, finally. Yay, right? So I'd like to say that I was selected to do this, kind of like you were, but there's only 4 of us, and I was really kind of the only one who wanted to do it. So here we are, but I'm very, very honored and privileged to be here today, very, very honored and privileged to be here today. So social work is about relationships. When it all boils down to it, it's about relationships. And I've learned that through some employment training that I did, that there are 3 C's regarding relationships, specifically what you don't do if you want to establish good relationships. You do not criticize, you do not condemn, and you do not complain. And we all do it because we're all human, right? Right? So, as I look around at colleagues, family, friends, fellow social workers, I think of the things that make us different. We take different approaches. Even the coworkers that I have who have a parallel position approach the work that we do in a very different way. We have different theoretical perspectives that we use to guide our approaches and our decisions. And we have different target populations. The people that we serve are as varied from a child who needs to be rescued and made to have a productive life to an elder who's breathing their final breath. We take care of them all. And it's huge responsibility. And it's a really, really, really rewarding task. So, we serve different people and we look at things differently. That's one of the things that makes our profession so unique, is that we can come from lots of different places and kind of have a similar end. But what I really want to talk about today are a different set of C's. And I came up with this kind of on my own, so you have to just bear with me because, I don't do this a lot. But these are what I consider to be the 3 C's of social work. So today we're going to talk about competency, compassion, and courage. Is that a good mapping sentence? Thank you. Yes? A+. All right. So, one of my most favorite quotes, and everyone's pulling out quotes today, and as everyone did, I almost scratched it off, and I thought, no, it's too good. I have to share this. And I got compliments in class for using it one time too. So some of you have actually heard this before. Maya Angelou said, "We did what we did until we knew better, and then we did better." We have a lot of shameful things that we have done in the name of the greater good throughout history. And we can criticize and we can condemn and we can complain about those things, or we can recognize that they happened and we can learn from them. And then we can know better and we can do better. So competency is knowledge. Competency is mastery of a skill or a task. Thank you, teachers, for your knowledge. Thank you to any field instructors who might be watching for assisting, and field instructors throughout history who have helped us to master skills and tasks. Thank you, mentors. One thing about competency, though, is that if you really feel like you're there, if you really feel like, all right, I'm competent, I got this, I'm sad to have to inform you that you're wrong, completely wrong, and that you have arrived at the exact opposite of competency, which oddly enough is not incompetency. It's this other C word called complacency. And I think it's really, really, really important to remember Maya Angelou's words, that we are always, always going to be learning something better and knowing something better and doing something better. And that doesn't mean that what we're doing now is wrong or bad. It just means that competency is not a destination, it's a journey. And it never stops. And people who are truly competent have every recognition of that. Any questions? All right. The next thing I want to talk about is compassion. Compassion for the people that we serve. Compassion for the people who work alongside us, and not just social workers, but all people who work alongside us. And really, really, really importantly, compassion for ourselves. Because not a single one of us is perfect. We're going to keep learning as we go. We're going to make errors. We're going to have mentors who we think are the most amazing things in the whole wide world, and guess what? They're people too. And it's going to happen where they're going to make a mistake too. And so are we. Compassion, you know, there's the big aspect of compassion. There's the grand gestures. I changed a law. I advocated for that person. I got a ramp built. I saved that child. I helped that family. And those are really, really big things that we can do for the people we serve. But the kind of compassion that I want to talk about today is actually the little things, because that's what makes us compassionate. If you work with a child and you remember their favorite color and give them that crayon when they walk in the room, that's compassion. If you work with elders and you know exactly how they like their coffee and give it to them, that's compassion. Holding doors. Saying good morning and meaning it. Asking people how they are and actually taking a few minutes to listen. Those are the little things that make you a compassionate social worker. And compassion is the difference between a competent social worker who is perfectly adequate. We've all graduated, we've passed our exams, we've gotten our job, we crossed our T's, dot our I's. We do our continuing education. But compassion is the difference between a social worker and a really good social worker. And it's noticeable. We need to have compassion for our colleagues. We need to have compassion for our fellow social workers, but we also need to have compassion for our interdisciplinary team members. And sometimes that compassion isn't always nice. And I think that's something that's really, really important to remember, is that while it's important to be kind, it's also really, really important when someone's going down the wrong path to be able to point that out to them in a respectful, appropriate, and kind way, and to support them in making a change. Furthermore, it's important for us to be respectful when we are receiving that criticism. And lastly, well, not lastly, but lastly on compassion. I think it's really important that we be compassionate towards ourselves. I had watched something one time, I don't remember, it was late at night, and this lady was speaking at a graduation, and she talked about how she has a lot going on in her life, and we all have a lot going on in our lives. I think about just the list, it's probably a mile long, of all the things I've had going on this week alone. And we need to recognize that we cannot do it all. And that sometimes we're going to fail, and sometimes we're going to have to make choices. And it doesn't mean that you're not an outstanding parent. It doesn't mean that you're not an outstanding family member. It doesn't mean you're not an outstanding social worker or a community member. It just means that sometimes you have to make some choices. I can give you an example right now. My daughter is being dropped off at her dance recital without me for the first time today. I am so blessed, so abundantly blessed to have friends and family members who are supportive enough that she still gets to dance tonight, and I get to watch her dance. Oh boy, I wouldn't want to miss that. I would have said, no, I'm not speaking. But someone else was able to drop her off. So, in a way, I failed as a parent today. I didn't get my daughter to dance like I was supposed to. But I've not failed as a parent because I have seen to it that she has had her needs met and she gets to see her mom do something really big. And that's talking to you right now because literally 15 minutes ago was her call time at the Chester Fritz. Literally. Last C, you guys ready for it? It's courage. And courage is tough because it can only happen if you're afraid or intimidated. You can't be courageous if there's nothing going on that's causing you to be afraid or scared. So I encourage you, in fact, not even encourage you, I challenge you, and I tell you that it's just our jobs to be courageous. It's our jobs to stand up for people who cannot speak for themselves. It's our jobs to change systems so that other people have opportunities that maybe we've had but they haven't. It's really, really important to do that. Amongst your colleagues, it's really important to have some courage too. Because, I don't know, I mean, some people know this about me because they've met me or whatever, but I'm kind of stubborn. I know. It's true. And I realized that I was stubborn one day when I was arguing with someone for probably 15 minutes about why I was not stubborn. How dare you call me stubborn? I'm not stubborn. I'll give you 500 reasons why I am not stubborn. Well, guess what? I was giving them one reason to prove that I absolutely am. And we all like to be right. And we all believe we're doing the right thing. And we all believe that we're saying the right thing. But what I think is really important is to look within ourselves and have the courage to know that sometimes we're wrong. And not only have the courage to recognize that sometimes we're wrong, but have the courage to be able to admit that and say to another person who's on our team, to a client that we're serving, to a teacher that we maybe made a mistake with, to ourselves, that you know what? Yeah, maybe I didn't quite get that right this time. And what should we do instead? Because ultimately, it is way more important to do the right thing than to be the person who's right. And you can quote me on that because I'm pretty sure I came up with it on my own. Okay? So I'm going to say it again because it's kind of good, you know? It is more important to do the right thing than to be the one who was right. The last thing I want to say about courage is that in social work practice, as social workers, we're courageous in those other ways I just talked about, but we're not really the ones who are totally courageous. The people we serve are. It is incredibly difficult to be vulnerable. It is incredibly difficult to ask for help. And I'm going to call almost all of you out right now and give you a good example of that. Because a couple of weeks ago, my dear Bruce Reeves forwarded an email where I was asking, what are your stories? What are your adversities? What are the things that helped you overcome that? I really wanted to personalize the speech, right? You know how many people responded? 1. And I commend that person for their vulnerability, because that's amazing. And I promised that person I would take really good care of their story, and I will. For forever. But I want you to just think about that. And that's not to make you feel guilty, but to really think about that. Why wouldn't you tell me your stories? I'm a social worker. I have been for a really long time. I can show you my license. It's from a long time ago. We're all kind of in the same boat, right? Graduating, going through education. And I want you to just think about that. Every time someone that you're serving comes in, and you need to ask them, how much money do you make? What's gone on with your family? What are your health conditions? And all the other things that we need to know to truly serve our people. I mean, we really do need to know them. But just to really, really, really recognize the courage that these people need to have to ask for and receive help. Any questions? All right. Teachers, thank you. Friends and family, wow, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting all of these students. And to my family and friends and colleagues, thank you. This is a really amazing opportunity for me to be here, and I'm very grateful for it. Students, I have a couple more C's for you. And one of them is congratulations. It's a lot of work. Good job. And me too, right? And the last C I have for you, and it goes back to that compassion for self. Today is a day to celebrate. So just remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. All right, so now is the time to try out those hoods. So what we're going to do is have the faculty come up front here and form a line. And then, so for all of you to kind of get the logistics of how this works out, our graduates will come up over in this area here, and they'll meet with their advisor, and their advisor will hood them. And then after you've been hooded, graduates, go through the line, please, and yeah, right, it's right. Yeah, so, and be congratulated, so. All right. Let's see. Are we ready? All right. Our first graduate, Lizette Benini. She did her independent study on trauma-informed social work practice with older adults and best practices for intervention. Melanie Sage is her advisor. Upside down. No. There we go. All right. Yay. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, and families, if you want to come forward and take pictures when your graduate comes by, please do so. So, all right. Congratulations. Alexis Bates wasn't able to be here with us today, but let's give her a hand. Her ISP title was the Olympia Mothers Dance Collective, a peer support group for mothers in Olympia, Washington, and Karen Lee Barktel was her advisor. Nicole Bates is here. Great, yay, good deal. So Her ISP title was Children and Teens Suicide Prevention, Intervention, and Postvention Manual for Schools, and Del Quest was her advisor. Oh, that's true, maybe. Cheryl Coleman is our next graduate. Her independent study title was Did We Miss the Boat? The Need for a Paradigm Shift in Policy and Service Provision for Youth and Young Parents Transitioning from the Youth Services System in the Canadian Province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And her advisor is Brett Weber. Our next graduate is Kadeen Cummings. Her independent study title was Identifying Elements of a Possible Engagement Strategy for Engaging Domestically Violent Males and Fathers and Non-Offending Partner and Mother in the Children and Family Services Intake Level in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's a mouthful. Ashley Day is our next graduate. Her independent study title was Barriers to Mental Health Services for Minority Populations in the Twin Cities, Social Workers' Obligation for Social Change, and Kaylin Alt was her advisor. Our next graduate is Christopher Deary. His independent study title was Mobile Detox, a pilot program for Fargo, North Dakota. And Todd Sage was his advisor. Oh. I didn't think we allowed Green Bay Packers stuff in here. Oh, goodness. I better. All right, the curse of being a Minnesota sports fan. Okay, our next graduate is Christina Dirk. She's not able to be here today. And her independent study title was Substance-Exposed Newborns, an Assessment Policy for Child Protection Services in North Dakota, and Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. All right. Anna Erickson is our next graduate. Her independent study title was Interrupting the Cycle of Prison Recidivism for Mentally Ill Clients, and Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. Nicole Fearing is our next graduate. Her independent study title was Retention of Employees in the Child Welfare Field, and Melanie Sage was her advisor. Shauna Fullerton is our next graduate. Her ISP title was Gifted Dropouts, Merging Cognitive and Non-Cognitive Learning, and Barb Kitko was her advisor. Our next graduate who wasn't able to be here today is Michaela Gaska. Her independent study title was Improving Healthcare Options Through Multidisciplinary Approaches, and Ken Flanagan is her advisor. Also not able to make it with us today is Janine Guffey. And her independent study title was Cooperative Housing and Justice Involvement, and Dishna Jayasundara was her advisor. Bridget Hill is our next graduate. Her independent study title was Romanian Migrants, Hearing the Unheard. Dishna Jayasundara was her advisor, but I get to hood her. Erica Holzer was not able to make it with us today. But her ISP title is the implementation of the Safe Crisis Management Program at a residential treatment facility, an analysis of physical restraint use, and Melanie Sage was her advisor. Our next graduate is Helen Hutton. And her independent study title was the application of the Wilbarger Protocol in reducing agitated behavior in long-term care residents and with dementia, and I was her advisor. Our next graduate is Suzanne Kramer-Brenna. Her independent study title was Addressing the Relationship Between Childhood Abuse, Trauma, and Bulimia Nervosa in Young Adult Women, a review of best practices for social workers. Andrew Quinn was her advisor, but Carol Schneeweiss will be hooding her. Our next graduate was not able to be with us today. Her name is Sarah Krebs. Her independent study title was Multi-Generational Care, a Proposal for Small Rural Communities, and Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. Also not able to make it today is Clarkton Moore. And his ISP title was Absent Fathers During the Child Protective Services Process, an Exploration of Diligent Efforts. And Todd Sage was his advisor. If he's watching, I hope he heard the aw when he wasn't here. So think about that, Clarkton. So, all right. Stephanie Morse is with us today. Her independent study title was Domestic Violence Counselors Working with Women and Children, and Melanie Sage was her advisor. Not able to make it today was Jessica Natz. Her independent study title was Father Involvement, Motivating Factors and Engagement Strategies, and Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. Teresa Nieto is here today. And her independent study title was Crow Creek Sioux Tribal Teen Court Services, Empowering the Dakota Youth to Give Back to the Community. Todd Sage is her advisor. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, you don't get away that lucky. Right. Ashley Peterson is our next graduate. Her independent study title was Inclusion of Alternative Health Models in Treating Depression, and Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. Our next graduate isn't able to be with us today, Dean Rohde. And his independent study title was The Efficacy of Equine-Assisted Therapy in Treating Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder, and Melanie Sage was his advisor. Tony Ross is with us today. His independent study title was The Effects of Exercise on Depression, Anxiety, and Substance Use Disorders. Andrew Quinn was his advisor, and Bruce Reeves will be hooting him. Our next graduate is Katie Schelke. Her independent study title was A Review of Creative Art Therapies in Treating Mental Illness, and I was her advisor. Our next graduate is Paula Soper. Her independent study title was Recommendations for Change, the Organizational Restructuring at Choices for Youth, and Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. Boo. Not able to make it with us today is Renaud Swancut. Her independent study title was Neurofeedback Outcome Monitoring in Clinical Practice, and Brett Weber was her advisor. And last but certainly not least, Kelly Vanderstoep. Her independent study title was Addressing the Gap in School Interventions for Middle School Homeless and Highly Mobile Students, Implications for Risk and Resilience. Carol Schneeweiss was her advisor. How about if we have one last hand for our graduates? Nicely done. All right, before you go, just one last thing. Students, if you would stay, we're doing the picture in here. Yeah, kind of underneath the logo. So stick around real briefly so we can have all of you as a group take a picture. And the last thing is please stay in touch. Don't be a stranger. So, all right.